Perfect. Well, I'll officially welcome Discover Core listeners. I'm your host and travel specialist, Lynn. I'm super excited to start this series, Travel Matters. It's a brand new webinar series. We're going to explore the transformative power of travel through inspiring conversations and voices around the globe. So, whether you're a seasoned traveler or you're dreaming about your first adventure, our goal is to simply spark ideas, share stories, celebrate meaningful moments that really make travel unforgettable. Today, we're joined by Lesley Carter, founder of Bucket List Publications, a platform dedicated to turning dreaming adventures into reality. Lesley is not only a travel expert, but also a fierce advocate for family travel, as we quickly heard you alluding to. And recently, she experienced a Discover Core journey to Cuba, actually, with her 4-year-old son, Max. And we're honored and eager to hear your unique perspective on family travel, Lesley, and what made your experiences so special. So I want to hop into it right away. We have about 45 minutes and we'll open it up for questions as well to the audience. So feel free to type those in at any point and we'll address them at the end. But thank you so much for joining us, Lesley. I really appreciate it. I know you're a busy lady, so getting you on a webinar like this means a lot to us. I know that every entrepreneur, traveler has a story that has some sort of root. So I want to start from the beginning. Where did you grow up? How did you get introduced to the world of travel? And just share a little bit more about your story.
Well, Lynn, sometimes you have to tell me to shut up because I ramble on for too long and too much. So give me a little notification if I'm
Okay,
just too much.
okay. Yeah.
Um, I grew up in Eastern Canada in Nova Scotia, on very end of Canada, the end of the world, uh, on Cape Breton Island, and it's a very small island. I grew up in a small town. I started out as a history teacher, and I loved teaching history and English to high school students. I did that for about 8 years, and then I was living and I love to teach so much, but I love to teach because I love to travel. And so I had the summers off so that I could travel and explore. And it gave me the opportunity to still travel as much as possible while having a job and funding it. And so after about teaching for about 8 years, I met my first husband, and we decided that we would move to California. And he was offered a position in California to work, and I would follow him as his dependent, which meant that I couldn't teach in the United States. So I
Mhm.
thought, well, what am I going to do with my time? I love to be busy. I'd loved kind of extreme adventures and travel and new opportunities and new experiences. And so I started a blog. And I started a blog as like just something to share with my family about our new life in California and our new experiences in California. And it was before blogging was really a thing. So it grew really quickly. I went
Mm.
from like a few hundred followers to like over 1 million in the first 6 months. I got picked up by some major sponsors along the way, just because they liked the kind of adventurous spirit and the new beginnings and the direction that I was going in. And I had some background in writing as well, so that helped. And then it just kind of grew from there. And so when Instagram became a thing, I was actually on Instagram the first week that it was even available to the world. And I started sharing a lot of my photos and videos and stuff of what I was doing, from the blog, from the website on Instagram. And then a lot of those followers just transitioned. I started with companies like Visit California was a major sponsor in the beginning that helped me grow. And a lot of times when I was sharing stuff on my blog, they would share that on their social media as well. Red Bull was a huge help as well. They kind of had beginnings like me. They were just two guys who started out with nothing, come up with the idea of Red Bull while they were traveling around Thailand. And then one thing led to another. So I went on a trip with them, and they shared a bunch of my blog posts on their social media. And at the time they had millions of followers, so those followers then were looking at my site, and things kind of snowballed from there. I'd always been into travel and adventure, even when I was like, 8 years old, I went on my first trip by myself. I lived in Nova Scotia, and I flew to Ontario to go and stay with my two aunts who lived in Ontario at the time. I flew by myself to go and visit them. And so travel had always been part of my life, and extreme adventures. I've been jumping out of planes and off of buildings and bridges since I was old enough to do it. So it just kind of all came together to create this beautiful synergy, and that was Bucket List Publications.
Wow. Well, I don't know if you know this, but I'm from Ontario, so I love that we
I had
can connect.
no idea.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to throw that in there at some point for you. But yeah, I grew up in Paris, Ontario, small town, went to school
Okay.
in Toronto. So I'm a Canadian girl too, even though our company is out of San Diego, California, the connections are definitely there. So
I didn't
I
know
love,
that one.
yeah, I love that you're an East Coast girl. I hear it in your voice as well, and it makes me really nostalgic for family. And no, it's so amazing to hear again, what could start as just a small idea has been built into this whole, yeah, it's your whole world now. Like Bucket List
Yeah.
Publications is not just a blog, it's become this sort of like lifestyle for you. Um, and yeah, and hearing that you were able to hop on a plane at 8 years old, like that, I think that experience just innately changes you to have that opportunity to
Hmm.
be independent and explore and see the beauty of the world, and what, beyond your small town too, right? Coming
Hmm.
from such a small place. Um, and I'm really curious because, you're this big family travel advocate as well. You've done all of this travel yourself, but I know that you include your kiddos as well. And I'm curious, what has made family travel also so important to you? How has it shaped how you explore the world as a mom?
I've done it all before I had kids, but then when I had kids, everything changed, but not in a way that people think that it changes. Like, people assume that when you have kids, you can't travel when they're younger. You can't do all the extreme things that you used to do, all these extreme adventures, travel to these crazy destinations. And I just do it all, but with the kids with me. And it
Mhm.
has completely changed how I even see things. Like before, even if I go to a destination and then I go back with the kids, I've seen it before, I've experienced it before, but when you see it through the eyes of your child, it is an
Mm,
entirely different world. It's an entirely different way of experiencing it. It's an entirely different way of seeing it. And the emotions that you attach to it have completely changed as well. So take something as simple as last year when we were traveling around Prague. I'd been to Prague once before, but I experienced Prague through like kind of a historical perspective. This time when I was in Prague, we had to slow it down a little bit. We were doing things like going to parks, we were going to playgrounds, we were going to the zoo, things that I hadn't done before. And I thought like, oh, am I going to really enjoy this? Because it's not really things that I would choose to do. It's things that I'm choosing to do as a family. But I ended up loving Prague a million times more the second time I went with Max than when I went before, because
mm,
I was then connecting with local families that were at the playground. I was meeting different people while I was there. I was more immersed. I felt more immersed in the culture and the
mm,
understanding of being there than anything that I could have done as a tourist there by myself without my son. So I just feel like children give you an entirely new view of everything. And there's
mm.
so much more beauty in the nature, in the natural environment that's there, and in the local culture and respect for people when you're traveling with kids as well. So I do still travel sometimes by myself, not very often, but sometimes by myself. And whenever I go, I miss the kids so much because I feel like I'm missing things that I would have experienced with them with me.
Yeah, and to see it through their eyes, I totally can see that and relate to it with my nephew as well. And just seeing like they make you reappreciate things that maybe we have come accustomed to, or even the experience on the plane and looking out the window
Exactly.
to the food, to the smells, the hustle and bustle of the place. It's such a gift. They allow you to almost experience it in like a more like heightened way, and because you're seeing it through their little eyes. And um I know that planning family travel as well can be pretty complicated, and it has its own set of considerations that can definitely play, a role in planning your experiences for your family. And so I'm curious, like, what your process is, or what certain factors in an itinerary or a travel experience that you're sort of prioritizing when you're planning a trip for your family. Just because I think a lot of people could relate to that, or
Maybe. I don't know.
yeah,
This one here,
maybe.
you had sent a couple of questions beforehand, and this one I was like, I don't know if people are going to relate to this because of the way we plan trips is very different than most people plan trips. So I usually have a bucket list every year of things that I want to accomplish that year. And a lot of times the destinations that we choose are based on the experiences that we can accomplish on the bucket list rather than choosing a destination in itself. So for example, I wanted Max to visit 100 countries before he turned 5 years old. So a lot of the planning that had gone into that was choosing new destinations so that Max could make it to 100 countries. So things like we recently went to British Virgin Islands, but that was only after Max had reached his 100th country, because if we had have chosen British Virgin Islands before, it wouldn't have counted as a new country, and so it kind of restricted us in what in visiting places like that because of that. And then part of the reason why we were really super excited to visit Cuba is because not only did it cross off another country for Max, but it also, we had visited every other country in North America except for Cuba at that point. So again, that was a driving factor in choosing that place. And then we also choose places based on experiences that we want to have. So my daughter I really wanted to introduce my daughter to swimming with sharks. And in a safe-ish environment, I mean, how safe can you be swimming with sharks? Okay, I get it. But like, so I did a lot of research in introducing her to that environment. So we went to Dubai first, and we went to the Atlantis Aquarium. And so we chose Dubai and Atlantis based on the opportunity that they have there to swim at the aquarium with marine life. She could scuba dive without being certified, get the exposure to swimming with a bunch of marine animals. They have like 30,000 marine animals in the aquarium, swimming with
Wow.
in a controlled environment. And then after that, I thought the other best place in the world to introduce her to swimming with sharks is in the Maldives. So we had planned a trip around visiting the Maldives so that she could swim with sharks. We went with this company that offers dive trips, snorkel trips, where you go in a small group and you have the experience to go by yourself. So it's called Can Do Tours. And the leader, the owner of the company, her name is Carla. And I'd learned from her, and I'd seen from her, from posts from her and everything, that she really immerses people in the environment, in the activity, and she explains the life, the ecosystem of sharks and nature of the ocean and everything before you get in the water. So I really wanted Athena to have experience with that before getting in the water so she'd feel comfortable. When we finally arrived at the cove to swim with the nurse sharks, Athena felt so comfortable that she easily got in the water. And without that introduction beforehand, I don't think she would have done it. So we chose the Maldives and Carla and Candu, all based on me wanting her to swim with sharks and have that appreciation for sharks. So oftentimes when we're choosing a destination, it isn't even about the destination. It's about the experience. It's about the opportunity, or it was about reaching our bucket list goals for that year or for that, time frame.
Absolutely. No, and I do think that I spend most of my days on the phone speaking with families and listening to, their sort of desires. And sometimes, like, I think getting to that root idea of, like, what do you want to experience as a family, and like what are you looking for? What's going to be considered as, a dream trip for you. And often it is like those types of experiences, or like I want to be in nature, or I want to be connected more to the art and culture or the people, or I want more volunteering. And so with that information, I feel like I'm so much better equipped to fit you into the right trip and figure out what um, will really allow you to have, a really, amazing experience, and create really great memories together. And we at Discover Course similarly try to do these sort of like educational experiences so that you're like you were saying for, you know, the companies that you also traveled with, you know, having that opportunity to like learn before you get in the water and like be
Mhm.
around researchers who really know the topics that they're, you know, gonna allow you to swim with sharks, for example. You know, we do whale shark swimming, for example, in Baja, Mexico, and I remember as well that like before we got on the boat, we were there with a researcher of 20 years. And I just felt so grateful to have that opportunity to, you
Yeah.
know, have somebody that with so much knowledge and and then be able to, of course, experience those incredible moments. It's life-changing and so cool that your daughter is such an adventurer because of it. I love that. And you alluded to Cuba a little bit and choosing it because it was, you know, a destination that is probably a little bit more complicated as well, right? For anyone on the call that, you know, I get a lot of people who don't realize how easy it can be to go to Cuba if you're going with a company that, you know, operates under the license for support of the Cuban people like we do, and we've been operating for about a decade there. But I know that there's probably a few other factors that, you know, inspired you to choose
Yeah.
Cuba. And so I'm curious, like for all of the trips that you could have chosen from us as well, because I wonder if there was some destinations that maybe Max hadn't explored, like Morocco. But like what made it stand out for you? What other factors were in there?
Well, you have a ton of destinations that we were like, we want to do this, we want to do this, we want to do this. But there was no doubt in my mind that Cuba was 100% the trip that I wanted to do. You mentioned that you're a Canadian too. So,
Mhm.
Lynn, for us, it was a lot easier to travel to Cuba. And
Right.
actually, I have a much more personal connection with Cuba, even then being a Canadian. My mom, when I was younger, when I was a little girl, from the ages of about 7 to maybe 15, 16 years old, my mom owned a private trade school where they
Okay.
offered English as a second language, and they offered it to people in the tourism industry. And so they would come from different countries, mostly Spanish speaking countries, come from different countries and stay as a homestay in Canada through my mom's company and learn English and then bring that back to the hotel industry and to the tourism industry in their countries. And so Cuba was the number one country that my parents offered this private trade school opportunity, English as a second language for. So I grew up around
Right.
Cubans my entire life. One of the ladies that taught at the school, Laura's her name, she lived with us for 4 years, off and on, but pretty much lived with us for 4 years, and she became like a sister to me. And she's from Cuba. Her mom Esther used to come and stay with us all the time as well, because she worked in the tourism industry in Cuba, and she facilitated a lot of the tours, and it made a lot of the arrangements for homestays and stuff on the Cuban side of it. And so we would go to Cuba every few months to welcome new guests, to welcome new people that would be coming to stay in Canada with us. So growing up, I felt like Cuba was my second home, and I was always immersed in that culture and the Cuban people that would come. Now I know it's just not the people that came to stay with us, but everyone that came to stay with us, they just had such a strong cultural feel vibe to them. They were just so kind and so loving and so fun. They reminded me so much of the people from home. Like being from Nova Scotia is one thing, but being from Cape
Right.
Breton is another. You like to drink, you like to dance, you like to celebrate life.
That,
And that is my whole life. And that is the Cuban culture to me. That was what they brought into my home. That is what every person that came from Cuba brought. So for so long, I wanted to introduce my kids to that, but I thought it was a lot more difficult because both of my kids are Americans. Now, I could take them through Canada, get their Canadian passports and stuff because they are dual citizens. I could take them through Canada, get their Canadian passports, go through Canada and go to Cuba. Okay, no problem. I could have eventually done that, but I had no idea that Discover Corps offered such an easy way to do it. So when I saw that that was available, and like I connected with Discover Corps through the idea of going to Cuba in the first place. But when I saw how easy it was, I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And to be able to bring Max with me and introduce him to something that was so close to my heart was just, it warmed my heart. And I didn't have to go home do it
Yeah,
all
Cuba.
from Canada and then go back to Canada and then come back to the United States with the worry of like, did I do everything properly and
Gonna
everything?
go. Yeah,
Yeah, that
yeah.
was just all taken care of. So it was, I mean, I'm sure that you offer so many other destinations that I would have loved to have gone to as well, but Cuba was the first choice for me.
Oh yeah, Cuba's so special. Cuba was the first destination I was sent to. It was my first day on the job, really, a few many years ago now. But it's just such a special place, and it yeah, there is something about the culture and the vibrancy of the people, the place, and I'm curious, since you had been there, so many times before, like how did this experience compare? What were some of the differences, perhaps, traveling with Max and on a, more coordinated trip like ours? Yeah, curious how it was different for you.
So I've gone many, many, many times before, but most of the times that I went, I would go through a hotel,
Mm.
like an all-inclusive specifically, where you spend a lot of time at the resort on site. Leaving was not really as, I don't want to say accepted, but I mean, you
And
went
as
there
common,
for a
yeah.
vacation package and that was what you did. And so if we left the resort, it would maybe to be just like walk up the strip in Veradero, or I went to Holguin before, like just walk around like the little market and stuff that's there. But really, you didn't leave sight. So this trip was extremely, extremely different because although we did stay at a beautiful, beautiful house, it was more in the Casa Particulars, staying with like a homestay than it was staying at an all-inclusive resort. And then on top of that, we went out and explored. We met locals, we experienced the culture, we went to a local dance studio, we went to dinner with a local family, we went to go see cigars being rolled, and we went in through a cave tour, and we just actually got out and experienced Cuba. We drove in the older cars, the 1950s cars, and drove around Havana in the car with the rag top down, and it just like you're in the streets, you're experiencing it. Even every time I've gone before, even though sometimes we went with our local friends, we still didn't get in it, like you
Yeah.
do when you go with Discover Corp. So it was 100% a different trip than anything I'd experienced before, regardless of if I was with Max or not. It still was 100% different. I did notice this time, every time I went before, Wi-Fi is an issue, phoning is an issue. Those things are still in existence, but they're getting a
Mhm.
little bit better. I won't say that they're better.
Yeah.
Don't go without
Mhm.
cash. Don't go expecting to use the Wi-Fi like you do at home. But at least when we went back to the homestays, they did have Wi-Fi available for us, and it was available all the time. Whereas when I went to all the resorts that I'd gone to in the past, Wi-Fi was pretty much non-existent. Like you went expecting to not communicate with home until you got back.
Yeah.
So it is getting a little bit better, but that similar Wi-Fi connection issue is still there. But this time, I mean, we really, I didn't even want to use the Wi-Fi because we were just gone all the time doing amazing things.
Yeah, that's what we often tell our travelers. We're like, expect to not be connected. And then if you have a surprise where Wi-Fi works at some location, or even in the park, sometimes they have like open Wi-Fi, but it's very hit or miss.
Mhm.
So we like to set the expectation that you're not gonna have it. But if you do, great. And I'm curious what were Max highlights? Like, what did he enjoy the most, from his perspective?
I did mention that we went to a dance studio when we were there, and that was maybe the highlight for both of us
Okay.
because we went to a local dance studio with local kids, and
Mhm.
they were just doing their dance lessons. And we ended up, because I'm really social. I can't help myself. As you can see, I don't shut up. I asked the kids if they would have a dance off for me before they left their class. And so, and I'd offered to give them $10 for whoever won. So it wasn't like I didn't just put them on the spot and expect them to perform
Oh,
for
you
me.
were
Yeah.
You
And
gave
then I
them a
ended up giving
motivator.
them all $10 because they were so amazing. Anyway, so I asked them to do a dance competition for me, and they formed a circle, like as if they had done this before, but it was like
Yeah.
completely impromptu. Okay. They formed a circle, and then one at a time, they would go into the dance circle and they would dance. And in between, Max was going in between them and dancing with them. And he was just, Max is very shy. I don't think I've mentioned this at this point, but Max is very shy. He's not outgoing. He doesn't go with other people. He doesn't insert himself in those types of situations. He's with me. He's clung to me the whole time. Something happened to him. Something
Hmm.
happened to him while we were at the dance studio, because he was going in between, he was going in the circle, he was dancing with girls, he was dancing with boys. He does not do this at all. I was completely blown away. They were having fun. I was having fun. I even danced a little. I don't, I, I mean, I do dance, but not well. But I didn't feel out of place. No one made me feel stupid or silly. I just went in and danced in the middle. I videoed. I was happy. They were happy. Everybody, it was just like that perfect moment that you just don't ever expect to happen. So I would say that was probably both of our favorite moment during the entire trip. But also, when I will mention, try to be quick. I
No,
don't know
no,
how to be
please.
quick.
No, no, no.
Um,
Tell me. I want to know.
but we also went to dinner with a local family, and they were both professors at the university, and they brought their two kids with them, and they were Max's age. Now, the kids don't speak a word of English, and Max doesn't speak a word of Spanish. If Athena had been with me, it would have been a little bit different. My daughter Athena, she's pretty good with Spanish and bilingual with English and French, and so she would have been a little bit better. But Max didn't speak any Spanish, and my Spanish is quite crap as well. Anyway, so the both of the parents spoke English, so I was talking with the parents and everything, and the kids, you notice them moving closer to each other and moving closer to each other. And Max was playing a game on my phone because he was so shy. And one of the little girls went over to him, and I said, Max, ask her if she wants to play. And so, I mean, they can't communicate with actual words that they understand, but he passed her the phone, and she played the game, and he showed her how to play a little bit, and then she showed him how to do something a little bit. And they're not using English or Spanish. They're just pointing and
Yeah.
playing. And the next thing, you look over and they're playing the game together, and they're passing it back and forth, and they're laughing and joking, and they're both speaking in their own language, and they're understanding each other, not in a way that you fully understand the conversation, but they're understanding each other, and they're playing and becoming friends. And they speak two totally different languages, and that didn't matter. They didn't care. And it was so beautiful to see Max not only playing with somebody, but playing with somebody that doesn't even speak the same language as him and getting along perfectly. You can now hear Max crying upstairs. He's playing a game with dad, and he's not getting along so well. So
Yeah,
he
yeah.
got along better with this little girl than he is with dad upstairs playing the game right now.
Can hear him right now. Oh, no, that's so incredible. You said some really powerful statements that I think can resonate with, maybe other families who have traveled with their kiddos, where you see a different version of them kind of come out, and that's when we're very weary of saying that travel can be transformative, because transformation is a powerful concept, right? But to see those little moments of change, or little moments of get coming out of your shell, and uh and then also just being so fearless, to pass the phone and have this whole interaction with somebody you haven't met before in a language you don't know. It's amazing. And for such a young kiddo, it's just so thrilling and exciting. And I think a lot of families, considering to travel, it's a big step for them, and I'm curious if you have some practical tips you could offer to make it a more, enjoyable, smoother experience that would be beneficial for families to hear.
I think that every child is different, and every experience is different, and every trip that we go on is completely different. So what works for one trip is not going to work for another trip. But what I
Mhm.
can say is you need to stay flexible. You need to stay flexible. Plans are going to change, things are going to change, schedules are going to change, kids are going to need to sleep sometimes when you don't expect it, kids are going to need to eat sometimes when you don't expect it. So if you just don't go into it with too tight, rigid expectations or a too tight, rigid schedule, then it makes it so much easier. An example might be like when we traveled to Dubai a few months ago. We flew overnight, and then we arrived the next day, and I wasn't sure, are the kids going to be too tired, are the kids going to want to do something? I didn't really know. So on that first day of arrival, instead of arriving and going right to Atlantis, which was our main destination in Dubai, like I'd mentioned, we decided to stay at a less costly hotel for a couple of days. So
Okay.
that if we wanted to just sleep for an entire day, we could sleep for an entire day. If we wanted to just transition easily for the first day, then we could just transition easily for the first day. And leaving that part open for us made the next 5 days amazing. Whereas if we
Hmm.
had have just hit the ground running, plan, go, 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 I think that it would have thrown the kids off the entire time, because there was another time that we went and we just hit the ground running. And not only was the whole first day ruined, but Max got sick. So the next 5 days were ruined because we just had such a tight schedule and such a rigid schedule that it didn't work. Also, if I can give one other tip, it would be to always pack an extra pair of clothes in a backpack for both the parents and the kids, because things happen. Even now, like Max just turned 5 years old. We just flew to British Virgin Islands last week, and on the flight, like I don't need a change of clothes for him anymore for like potty accidents or anything like that. But on the flight, I actually spilled an entire glass of water on him, on his lap. And I was like, this is worse than if he peed himself, because like I caused this. And now he's too old. I don't have an extra pair of pants packed for him. I have to open the suitcase. I have to find the pants in the suitcase. Why did I just not pack the pair of pants in the backpack like I'd always done before? I don't know. And then not only do those types of accidents happen for kids, but they happen for adults as well. And so I always feel like if you just keep with you on hand, like an extra, even if it's just for an adult, like an extra dress that you just don't really wear that often, or something that you can throw on, or for a kid, just one extra outfit in your bag makes all the difference. And then once you have those two things down, then just go with the flow and enjoy it. But also, because we were saying like it's so important with kids that you see things through a different perspective from them, to just take the time to appreciate that. Like I remember one time we were in the Alps, and Max, we were walking into town, and the walk wasn't the experience, but it ended up being the entire experience. Max
Mm.
saw rocks, like an inukshuk, like rocks where you build rocks on top of each other. And it's like historical, like now the people will know we were here, inukshuk type of thing. Well, we saw rocks built along the path, and Max said, oh, I want to do that. And we stopped and we built our own little inukshuk on the path. And then he saw some flowers and he wanted to stop and smell the flowers. And then we saw some bugs on the flowers, and a 10-minute walk ended up turning into an hour and a half walk. But it was so beautiful. And that was the highlight of our day. So because we had a little bit of extra time in our schedule and things weren't so rigidly planned, that ended up being almost the highlight of my entire month-long trip, was just
Mm.
those experiences out in nature in a beautiful, perfect day in the Alps, in the mountains with Max. And it was just nothing that was planned. So just take in those experiences when you can.
I think that's amazing feedback. The flexibility piece is absolutely critical. Like even for us in Discover Core, we have very kind of set planned itineraries, but there's also some things that happen, between the words of the itinerary, those sort of stop the bus moments that you're maybe not expecting. And like you said, they can become the highlights.
Yeah.
And I love the stopping and smelling the flowers, because I feel that when you travel, it almost sometimes feel like the world slows down. I mean, it depends on what kind of experience, of course, but allowing yourself that time to start to notice the little things again, like the bugs on the plants and the smelling of the flowers. It really is, I feel like what travel is really all about at the end of the day, is to live in the present and enjoy time together and connect with nature and the things around you, the culture as well. And you know, you've spoken to it a lot already, but this cultural immersion piece. How do you feel like that has impacted Max? Anything else you can share about sort of that cultural immersion piece and how you've seen the impact on him now, as he even gets older and is, able to engage a little bit more.
It's completely changed both of my kids. 100%. Their understanding of that it's okay to live and believe and belong in completely different ways. Like we've ridden camels through the desert with a Bedouin tribe, or we've got experienced many different religions. We've gone to different churches and mosques and synagogues and experienced different beliefs in different ways. And so introducing the kids to that at a young age, I think, especially now, and I won't go too much in that direction, but especially now is more important than ever.
Mm,
Exposing kids to all different races and religions and backgrounds, and not even just that, but different financial backgrounds as well, because
mm,
my children are growing up in a community in Frisco that is absolutely amazing, but most people are very affluent, and so I really like for my kids to be exposed to different financial backgrounds as well, so that they know that not everybody has what we have, not everybody experiences things the same way that we experience them, and then it gives them a much better appreciation for what we have and what we can do and how we can give back as well. And then not only that, but I also feel like exposing kids at such a young age to different languages. There have been tons of studies about exposing children, even as young as like 3 months old, 4 months old, 5 months old, like months old, experiencing different languages at that age helps them to understand language as they get older much easier. And so my daughter, Athena, she was exposed to many, many, many languages when she was younger. And then she actually started school in Canada, in Montreal. And
okay.
she started school in French, in a French school. And she transitioned so easily without her parents speaking French at all. She transitioned so easily because she'd heard different languages and pronunciations throughout her entire life. And so that made the transition easier for her. And then picking up Spanish, like I said before, if she's with me, I just ask her. I use her as a crutch because she can easily transition to Spanish and French, and she's picked up phrases and sayings in so many different languages, and Max as well. So that exposure at a young age, really, even if they don't remember it, it doesn't matter if they remember the exact thing that happened.
Hmm.
Exposing them to all of these things is
Hmm.
completely changing them for the future. And again, it doesn't matter if they remember. It's not about remembering it. It's about this exposure from a young age and then growing up with that, and learning that that's the way of the world, and it's a beautiful place for all the people that live in it.
Mm. Yeah, everything you've shared so much, Leslie, highlights this deeper level of the why, the why travel matters. And it's more than just making memories. It is about also raising empathetic, open-minded, adaptable individuals who can really connect with anyone and find a common thread that can, build real connections. And at Discover Core, we're very passionate about trying to create those sort of meaningful experiences for families. And I don't know if there's anything else you want to add on sort of this, why travel matters for families. I think you've said so much amazing things already, but if you have any sort of last why travel matters comment, love to hear it.
I mean, I think that I rambled on.
No,
Rambled on
no.
enough. I travel has been my entire way of life for the last 12, 13 years. And I see every day how it has changed my children, how it has changed me. And you use the word empathy, and I think that that's the biggest thing that I've learned from travel is empathy for so many different ways of life. And if we can teach our children that, if we can raise our children that way, then I feel like that's the number one thing that we can give to our kids.
Yeah, absolutely. No, Leslie, it's been such a insightful fun conversation. You haven't rambled at all. Like, this is the idea of a webinar, to have these rich conversations, and we truly appreciate, sharing your experiences, your wisdom. Oh my gosh, you have traveled so much. I don't think I met a lot of travelers, and I've traveled a lot myself, but I don't know if I have had the privilege of chatting with somebody who really has explored so much of the world, and with, not just yourself, but with your children as well. So huge shout outs to you, and your passion for family travel and responsible tourism really does highlight why travel matters, and that's what today's webinar is really about. So I think it's a great time to open it up. We're at 45 minutes now in case anybody does have any questions for Lesley. You can always chat us as well or email us after if you think of anything later that you're like, oh, I wish I really knew this. Happy to answer. And if it's anything, you can always forward it over to Lesley and hear from her after. But if anybody wants to type in any questions in the chat, feel free to do so.
And I'm always available for questions anytime, even if you think of something else that doesn't relate to this, but relates to travel in general or traveling with children. Please feel free to ask, because I love this. Obviously, I love to ramble on and talk as much as possible. I think it's the teacher in me from before.
No, such a teacher energy, but we love it. Somebody wrote, does Max talk about his travelers after he returns home, after his travels, I'm guessing, after he returns home, or maybe people he meets
Yeah,
at such a young.
sometimes he really does. It surprises me what he remembers. We had just gone on a trip to British Virgin Islands, and we were on a ship, and he said to me, remember when the man, because we were throwing rocks in the water or whatever, and he said, remember when the man was throwing rocks with me in the white dress? Now, this was his words, not mine. But he was referring to a lovely guide that we met in Oman, and the
Mm.
guide just fell in love with Max. And the two of them played on the beach and threw rocks in the water for about a half an hour while Athena and I went and swam in the water. And Max just stayed with them, and they played together like family. And he remembered that. And that had been in December that we had gone to Oman. And this was just last week that he remembered. And he was saying, remember that? Remember my friend, he calls everybody his friend, my friend that was throwing rocks with me with the white dress, and we had so much fun. I really liked that. I'd like to throw rocks in the water here too. So he really remembers a lot of things. Now, will he remember that, in a year and 2 years? Probably not. But again, I think that those experiences are really shaping who he is. So he might not remember who threw rocks with him, but I think that it changes who he is now.
Absolutely. Oh, Max. Oh, I hope I get to meet him one day. He sounds like a gem, and I can only imagine what he's gonna grow up and do in his life. Somebody else has a question of, if you had one piece of advice for flying with a kid, what would it be?
Just remember that it's going to be over soon. No, but sometimes your kids
Shepherd.
cry, and sometimes they get upset, and sometimes they struggle. I always try to make sure that I bring entertainment and food for Max, because if he has those two things, then I think we're going to make it through anything at any age. So entertainment and food. And remember, you'll probably never see any of those people again. So if he cries a lot, or they cry a lot, or they're upset a lot, it's going to be over soon.
Yeah, it's temporary. It's not a forever thing. What's the longest flight you've done with Max then, I guess? I mean, you've traveled to so many places, but like, what's the longest flight?
Well, that trip that we went to Dubai, we took a cruise from Dubai over and finished in Thailand. So we flew from Bangkok, Thailand to Dubai, which I think was like 12 hours. And then we flew from Dubai to Turkey, which was say 2 or 3 hours. And then we flew from Turkey to Texas. So that was like another 12 hours. So like in that span of 2 days, we flew for 26 hours.
Yeah.
And it was
Long.
basically like, I mean, it was stopping, but we didn't leave the airport in that time.
No.
So 32 hours of travel, and 26 hours of flying.
Yeah, that's a long one. yeah, huge shout out. And I think the backpack thing is absolutely necessary, and like change of clothes, snacks, probably definitely entertainment, something that will keep them, yeah, occupied for that time. And um
Yeah, we
no,
bring his iPad all the time and I make sure that there's fresh new games and shows on there for him. So that it makes it a little bit easier. And then he's really particular with food. And so I try to make sure that I have food available for him, food that he likes available for him all the time. Like on this 6-week trip that we have coming up, we're only traveling with backpacks. That's it. We have no other luggage because we're taking so many little flights during the time. But half of his backpack is filled with 2 containers of food because I know that when we arrive in Morocco, we might go somewhere that he doesn't like the food, or when we arrive in, who knows, he might, in Cyprus for the flight to Cyprus, he might not like the food, and so I make sure that I have food for him at all times.
no, huge win with that. Any sort of snacks to, you don't need a hangry kid as well, that doesn't add a good ingredient to the mix of travel.
Exactly.
No, so many amazing tips and tricks, Lesley. It looks like we don't have any more questions in the chat for now, but as Lesley mentioned, both of us are super open to hearing your questions later. And thank you, Lesley, again, and for everyone joining us today. I think it was a really amazing, rich conversation. And I hope today's conversation for people on the call allowed you to deeper your understanding of travel and how it can positively impact lives and communities as well. So be sure to stay tuned on our next webinar series, but I'm super thrilled that we got to do it with you, Lesley, to launch this new webinar series. And I do visit Frisco quite often, actually, so maybe I will hit you up next time, but I think it might be
Please.
difficult to
Yeah.
coordinate schedules, but I hope we get to meet in person one day. Mhm.
Lynn, I would absolutely love that. Please, please, please do reach out when you're in Frisco, or anywhere in Texas. I don't mind a little drive.
Yeah, yeah.
I
No,
will
but it
come and
works
get
out.
you.
My husband's old boss is in Frisco, so we do end up going there quite often. So I'll definitely message you, and thank you so much for the opportunity to
Thank
have this
you.
webinar with you. And thanks again, everyone. Hope you have a great rest of your week, and yeah, happy end of the month. Hope everyone has a great start to May.
Thank you, Lynn.
Okay, bye. Good luck on your travels, Lesley. Talk to
Thank
you soon.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye.